Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul. Hopefully you're having an amazing day. Apologies for not being on camera for today's video. I'm working on a couple of really cool projects and also messing around with lighting and stuff for product shots. So it's just a bit, well, let's just say chaotic at the moment. Honestly, I would have been all kind of done and ready for camera, but on top of that, I managed to break my glasses. So I've also been dealing with trying to get new ones, which is interesting right now given the UK lockdown. But anyway, let's get back to the news, shall we? Because, yeah, there's some really interesting things that have emerged. The first of which is a report from DigiTimes, and it actually provides some clarification as to why we're seeing some of these shortages. Now, definitely an obvious reason is the mining craze, because mining now is becoming very profitable, for example, Ethereum. However, there are two or three other causes. DigiTimes state that there's the PS5, we'll get into that in just a moment, as well as packaging and substrate availability. In fact, this report is stating that not only are Nvidia, Apple, EV cars, and other such things dealing with this same issue, but it seems to be pretty much anything which uses silicon interposers. Now, getting back to the PS5, obviously, Microsoft as well as Sony have had huge orders for their next generation consoles. Both Sony as well as Microsoft use TSMC's 7nm process for the manufacturing of its chips. And of course, there is a finite amount of chips per month that TSMC can produce. And these same manufacturing fabs are also used to manufacture other components, not least of which are AMD's own CPUs and GPUs. We'll get to that in just a second. But this is not the only time that we've heard that Sony are kind of causing shortages in other aspects of AMD's business. But obviously, at the end of the day, Sony and Microsoft are huge clients for AMD, and I suspect that perhaps one of the, let's say, caveats of their contract, and I'm saying this in complete ignorance, would be for a number of chips to be produced. So let's get back to the substrate problem and packaging, which is, of course, a slightly separate issue to what we're seeing because of the, capacity issues with TSMC. Now, the actual packaging problems are something that is, well, actually just rippling through the industry. As I mentioned a moment ago, even Nvidia seems to be dealing with this. And perhaps this actually is all starting to come together now as a story, because don't forget, Nvidia recently put out a statement regarding the RTX 30 availability, and they even said that components are actually one of the reasons that they're dealing with shortages of RTX 30, although they didn't specify exactly what. They left it down to people's imaginations. There was a misreport that it was to do with memory, but I am 99% certain, because I've spoken to a couple of people now, and they are pretty knowledgeable, and they've told me that no, that is not the problem. In fact, there is tons of memory going around, so that isn't the issue. So it's something else. The story is deeper than that, and I believe that it probably is packaging and substrate problems. So what exactly happens? Well, when you have manufacturing of a component, let's say, for example, TSMC, they will manufacture the actual chip and then it's packaged onto substrate, and then basically that chip, the CPU, the GPU, the APU, whatever, obviously that needs to be soldered, well, basically attached to the motherboard. And this, of course, is, as the name would imply, packaging. Okie dokie skip, but what does this actually mean in terms of numbers? Well, according to DigiTimes, and again, I'm using their numbers here, so I will of course link them in the video description. AMD are only able to currently satisfy 50 to 60% of the Zen 2 demand for notebooks, which I'm sure you'll agree is not exactly ideal. That means that about 50% of the orders are, well, not being fulfilled. Furthermore, this also is going to probably become worse when we start to see the release of Zen 3 products. So this essentially means that we're being hit with that perfect storm. The first is that TSMC, for AMD products anyway, cannot manufacture enough chips because their own supply constraint is, well, just groaning. There is only a certain amount of chips that they can produce per month, obviously. The second is that, well, yeah, these packaging issues that I mentioned, which is affecting everyone. And then finally, you've just got insane demand. Like today, I actually posted a link to be able to buy the PlayStation 5 because it was actually available to purchase just for a little bit of time on Best Buy. It was a US link, and I posted it, and then literally within like 1 minute, it was gone. Now, obviously, some of this is due to bots, but some of it is just because of the demand. And in GPUs, it's, well, just ridiculous because of mining. The mining craze at the moment is just, yeah, it's not good. I think that this situation is going to slowly resolve itself over the next couple of months, perhaps. There won't be any like relief, but as the year progresses, it will definitely get better. Don't forget that Nvidia are utilizing Samsung and their 8nm process. So yeah, it's kind of just one of those really, it's just one of those insane times in the market that everything seems to be happening at once. And now, the next story, and this is actually to do with Nintendo's Switch. So we've been actually hearing about a new version of the Switch for some time. In fact, I've actually leaked a couple of things myself. I was hearing of a new Switch model that was being created and it did actually support 4K. I wasn't provided any advanced technical details to exact specifications, but I had been told in my early reports, which I'll try to remember to link in the video description as well as videos, that Nintendo were aiming to create a 4K capable system, and it would naturally support other new features like a new screen, and there would obviously be updated hardware to support all of this. I'd also been told that the sound capabilities of the system too had been vastly beefed up. But now we have a report from Series M. They are a pretty well-known console hacker and data miner, so of course I will link this in the video description. I'm probably going to butcher the name, but the code name for this new Switch revision is Alula. That's A-U-L-A. So if I have pronounced that wrong, please let me know in the comments. But anyway, I'm going to read this verbatim just for you guys, and then we can kind of go into it further. Nintendo actually is working on a new model with upgraded display stuff, and has been for about 1.5 to 2 years. I personally believe it's 4K, given the signs I'm seeing in the firmware, but it's not confirmed yet. I could be wrong. The new hardware is codenamed Alula, and it's using the Mariko SoC. There's a bunch of references to it in the code. Atmosphere supports the new display already in theory. Alula explicitly supports handheld mode. It's not docked only, that's Calcio, which seems like it's for internal only, never releasing since Calcio has no game card slot or battery. And then they also add to this that the tablet itself has definitely an upgraded display. I don't know if it's 4K. Alula has firmware support, some Realtek chip that advertises itself as a 4K UHD multimedia SoC. That's why it's my belief that it's 4K. The chip might have new dock and not inside the tablet, there's nowhere to tell from the firmware. He also added that Mariko has, quote, substantially better cooling and battery life. It's a bona fide die shrink over the original gen. My best guess, pure speculation, no firmware indication that this is the case. If they're extra performance, they'll just push the clocks higher across the board. But yeah, I speculate games will be like DSi enhanced games, or how some games benefited from the PS4 Pro despite working on the PS4. So going back to my information, which actually dated back to August of this year, and this information was actually from a really good source, but I was told that February of last year, the hardware had actually been tested with a kind of newer revision, but originally the first piece of hardware had started to be tested late in 2019, so that's quite a while ago. According to what I'd been told, and again, I don't know if this is accurate and it could be separate to what is being reported here, audio performance and CPU performance were notably more impressive than the original Switch. Remember, the original Switch is Maxwell based, but we'll get more into that in just a second. And they had been told that they did a, quote, full bring up of the first revision of hardware. Again, that would be the chip that would have probably seen 2019. Now, I don't know if this information is what we're learning here or well, whether it's entirely separate, it's possible that my information was wrong. Again, I'll link it in the video description. This new information is wrong, or both of us are wrong, or there's some middle ground where some of the information from both of us is right or, well, incorrectly. Now, it's worth noting that there's a very good chance that, yes, we would just see higher performance clock frequencies, better memory, that type of thing. And that would certainly be a very easy way to increase performance. However, if it really is 4K, I wouldn't be surprised too if they simply used a different variant of a SoC from from Nvidia, not Nintendo, and this would possibly support DLSS. Whether this is true or whether it's false, I don't know. I had kind of it been hinted to me that this is maybe the direction they'll go. The only issue is, though, that NVIDIA would use something like tensor probably to do this. And if they did do it, there would definitely be additional power costs, and obviously a larger chip is also being used because tensor cores do take die size. But I think the net power benefits of using tensor cores to upsample from a lower resolution, let's say 720p to 1440p or even 4K is possible. I also covered rather extensively actually why DLSS 2.0 and AI upsampling will change everything. And yeah, like DLSS 2 is pretty damn amazing. And now you can upsample from its like really low resolutions, like 1080p to 4K, and yet anything and everything in between. So whether this is something that we're going to see from Nintendo, I don't know. The thing is, Nintendo actually did put out a statement and said that they're not really that focused on this at the moment, that this is not going to happen. So maybe this information is incorrect. It could just be internal testing, which also, of course, goes on all of the time. Again, a patent is a patent, or testing is testing. It doesn't necessarily become a final production product. But let's just be honest, Nintendo are kind of an interesting company. It's sometimes very hard to predict what they're going to do. I'd actually be really hyped for a new revision of the Switch, a more powerful version. That's just personally my take on it. I do think that the original Switch is pretty damn amazing. I think that a title like Doom, for example, Doom 2016, really just shows how well optimized, so how a game can run if it's well optimized, even on hardware which is honestly kind of weedy. But with that said, hopefully you have enjoyed the video. If you have, of course, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.